Good. Okay, tonight we're talking about how to take charge of your mind. Now, what that means, and this is part of last week, if you realize that your mind is intimately involved in your health, and your health is intimately connected to your perception of reality, if you can take charge of your perception of reality, you take charge of how your body produces certain chemicals. Okay, does that make sense?
Sure.
Now, it's going to make more sense later because we got to walk you through the different aspects of this. Because right now, you're in a programmed reality. Your body is responding to what you view as reality based on your history. So if you see a police car drive up here, you could say, oh no, he caught me, I'm speeding, which will produce one sort of chemicals. Okay, that would be more like my reaction. Or you could say, the policeman's coming up here, great, he's coming here to protect us. You know, I've had nothing but wonderful experiences, okay? Or you say, uh-oh, the man is here. You know, whatever. But it's the same response that you're looking at that your memories produce. So what I'm going to show you is how to access new memories and how to program your brain so that depending on the environmental stimulus that you can change it. And Thoreau had a great idea. And this is also because to reprogram your brain, you can't do it with just one thought. You know, you can't read one book and master relationships. You can't read one anatomy book and know everything there is to know about anatomy. You have to keep learning and practicing. Anybody in here ever read a book on golf? It doesn't work unless you pick up the club. Okay, a single footstep will not make a path on the earth. So a single thought will not make a pathway in the mind. To make a deep physical path, we have to walk again and again. To make a deep mental path, we must think over and over the kind of thoughts we wish to dominate our lives.
Well, Doctor, run it up a couple of decibels.
Okay, I'm going to increase the volume because it's going to help communication with some people in the front row. Okay, and others, I hope you have seatbelts on. Okay, so when we look at this, we got to work on how to program our brain. Okay, and look at the two aspects of the brain. You got the conscious mind, which is filled with all sorts of environmental stimulus. And what types of stimulus do we have? Touch, taste, hearing, sight, smell. Okay, that's the stimulus. They're called senses or sensory input. We can also say thoughts, but let's just look at the basic stuff, okay, that's filling the conscious mind. Because those thoughts are a result of those experiences that we're inputting. Good volume? Okay, I'll increase it even more. So the conscious mind is the result of your sensory input. Now, when we look at this, the unconscious mind is programmed by that consistent sensory input. And then you get the body reactions. So now this is important when you look at this because your unconscious mind is going to produce certain responses to the environment. And emotions are chemicals. Emotions are chemicals. So if you're frustrated or angry, you're going to produce a certain chemical. If you're scared, you're going to produce a certain chemical. Now, how many people like roller coasters? Raise your hand. I'm not one of them.
Me neither.
I'm on that coaster. My perception is fear. I don't know if I was scared as a kid or what, but just looking at that scares me. How many people have gone skydiving? I have. I love it. It's fantastically fun. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to do it a bunch, but I like doing it. It was a blast. So one initiates fear, the other joy. So when you look at this, what stimulates our passions, okay, what stimulates our thoughts are going to program that subconscious. Because what you look at this, when we're trying to change from this programmed reality, when we're trying to change from, you know, the Woody Allen sleeper, where we're just robots responding to the same environmental stimulus over and over again, we can change it by changing how we program it. And what they're talking about is a habit, and this is a good definition, is an idea that's been programmed into the subconscious mind over and over again. Lao Tzu, one of the most brilliant guys ever. Love is of all passions the strongest, for it attacks simultaneously the heart, the head, and the senses. Yeah, because what happens when you're in love? Extreme violence and extreme joy, right? You know, when you're talking about breaking up, you know, that's what police are afraid of domestic disturbances. So now, what I want you to do is, we've got to change this programming that you're doing to your brain. And we've got to understand now, if you're happy, that's good. But satisfied can lull you into a sense of not changing your outcome. Like if you're satisfied with a relationship, are you going to work hard at it? Are you going to try and stimulate it? No. If you're satisfied with a garden, are you going to work at it to till the soil? No. So dissatisfaction is actually a creative state. So you've got to, and Tony Robbins says it brilliantly, you need a couple of things in a relationship. You need certainty. You also need that uncertainty to stimulate the creative juices, the creative side. And I like the Bible verse there, a couple thousand years old, but it's still true. Not lukewarm, neither hot. Because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'll spit you out of my mouth. So what they're talking about is exciting passions. This exciting passions is going to stimulate that neural input. Now, so when we look at this, and we go back to last week, we've got this picture here where thoughts and feelings are actually a memory of the past depending on the stimulus. So if you see that picture of the roller coaster, or the picture of the puppy, you know, the little biting guy that nipped your ankles when you were 5, so you hate puppies, okay, or the roller coaster that you love, when you see that, that triggers a memory. That memory triggers the neurons in the brain to fire. That triggers a chemical, and that triggers the body response. So we're trapped in a cycle of thought, feeling, neuronal firings, chemical production, and body reaction. And so what I'm going to show you today is how to change that first, that initiator, that thought process. Because when you change that thought process, you change everything. I mean, if you thought that at 90 years old you should be sitting in a wheelchair, okay, or looking for a home, what if you were 90 years old and wanted to ride 90 miles on a bike? You heard that, didn't you? It's okay. Men have selective hearing. I understand that. So we got definitions now, and we got to change these definitions. So when we look at this, what's a feeling? A feeling, think of this, okay, is your conscious awareness of chemical production of neuronal firings. So we're talking about anatomy and physiology. So a feeling isn't like, wow, I love that apple pie from Julian, okay? Or I love that experience, or I love this. What you're loving, or what you're hating, or what your fear is, or what your joy, it's actually a conscious awareness of a chemical that's created by neuronal firings. When we look at this, the body is a mass of energy, and we know this because since you are more energy than matter, the energy from these feelings radically affect how your body responds. Okay? So the energy from the feelings, which are actually chemicals produced by the nervous system, are going to radically change the body responses. Okay, does that make sense? And I want to go over this because if you understand this, that if you can change your feelings, you change the way the chemicals are produced, you change how the neurons fire, you change how the body responds. So changing the feelings and realizing your energy is everything. It's everything. Like these kids up here, happy, sad, you know, we're talking angry, excited. Why? Why is that kid angry? Why? It doesn't matter the stimulus. Whatever the stimulus is, maybe he's going to a relative's for a party, and Aunt Gertrude pinched his cheek, and he doesn't want to see Aunt Gertrude. Or maybe he wants to watch TV, and he doesn't want to leave. Or maybe, so you see, they're reacting to these emotional stimuluses based on a memory. It's not based on current events. And why do they have a memory that's creating happy, sad, excited, okay, frustrated? They have that memory because of the programming inside. Okay, does that make sense? And so when we look at this, if you ask me how I'm feeling, and if I say fine, run, that's code for horrible. Okay, because I am hot or cold. Okay, I am not a lukewarm type person. But if I was to answer honestly, now think of this. How are you feeling? Where I'm consciously aware of being emotionally involved with an idea or memory, therefore I've moved into neuronal firings that is producing a chemical response, so my body is actually living a past memory right now called a feeling. Now that sounds complicated, but if you think about it, okay, how are you feeling? Fine? Or wonderful? Or joyous? Or sad? Why? Because of the different input in your brain. You're reliving a memory that's creating, that memory is creating those neurons to fire. So the whole thing is getting the brain to rewire, to fire the appropriate neurons so that you produce a different chemical. Not yet, because this is being recorded. We'll answer questions later. Okay, so when we look at this, the feelings are chemicals stimulated by the neurons firing. Now, this is how we reprogram them. And it's vital to reprogram. And all it is learning and repetition. Just like Thoreau said. So in order to change how those neurons fire, we got to change how to do it. You know, if you've ever, any parents in here? Yeah? Okay, well I know you've never had a challenge parenting. Okay. Okay, that's not possible. Everybody who's a parent has had a challenge, yes? Okay, good. Now, what brought you through it? Okay, did you read a book once and just you mastered it and you just thought, hey, now I'm a totally cool parent? Or is it repetition? Do you learn stuff and then you apply it and then you find some stuff doesn't work and then some stuff does? Okay? And an incident with mine, I mean, now my kids are 20 and 28. When Danny was 13, he wouldn't take the trash out. Now, I work hard, 10, 12 hours a day, go home, I cook, I do the dishes, and he wouldn't take the trash out. Will you take the trash out? Yeah, sure, Dad, I'll take the trash out. You know, glazed over look, video games. Stop me if this sounds familiar. Okay, am I the only parent that had a problem with like this? Okay. Well, so I go in there and I follow some of the message you're going to learn today. I say, buddy, I'm really frustrated. I'm feeling unappreciated that I'm asking you to take the trash out and you're not doing it. Would you be willing to take the trash out? He says, Dad, I hate taking the trash out. And I'm going, is there something else you'd be willing to do? He says, yeah, I'll pick up the dog poop. And no, you don't understand. Taking out the dog poop, we have an 18-pound dog that poops out 20 pounds every day. Okay? And it's on tile. Okay? And so the tile's got to be hosed off, and then you got to scrape it up. Miserable job. We're talking an hour. I said, you're kidding. You'd rather pick up the dog poop than take out the trash? Yeah. Instantly no challenge in our house. It was wonderful. So when you look at this, to change that programming, because what was I expecting when I was talking to my son? I was expecting a totally different outcome because I was doing the same thing. Whatever you hold in your mind will tend to occur in your life. Is that true or true? Okay, if you continue to believe as you've always believed, you'll continue to act as always you acted. So if I continue to hold that frustration every time I dealt with my son, what am I expecting? Frustration and conflict. Okay, so now if you continue to act as always you've acted, you'll continue to get what you've always have gotten. That's true. That's where the conflict comes from. If you want different results in your life or work, all you have to do is change your mind. It's true. It's really true. When you see people that have mastered depression and anxiety, you know, do you want to go out to the movies? I got free tickets. Oh no, you don't want to go. Did you read that book I told you about? You know, about expanding your mind? Oh no, you didn't do that either. You just won the lottery. Oh yeah, higher taxes. You know, you see these people that don't get it. You know, they master, no matter what their circumstances are, They mastered depression, and they mastered it just like a tennis pro. You think a tennis pro out there has mastered the swing and the pressure. The pressure of contest in front of people. I mean, that takes a huge amount of practice. You're not going to read a book on tennis and become a tennis pro. It requires what? Repetition. Repetition, practice, and training. To be depressed all the time, what does that take? Repetition, practice, training. And I know it's interesting to think, well, somebody mastering depression, that's repetition, practice, and training? Yes, because what are both of these people doing? They're both experts. They're masters because depending on the environmental stimulus, they're getting those neurons to fire correctly, and those neurons firing correctly are producing a certain chemical, initiating a feeling. Courage in one, fear in another. No, you're supposed to say, wow, I never looked at it that way. But it's true. People that are depressed have mastered this neuronal firings and this chemical. And so we can change that. And now here, endogenous pharmacotherapy. This I've used this reference before, but when you look at it, what's amazing about this is the brain has a plasticity. This means that tennis player and the person with chronically depressed has this certain nerve pathway that's firing off all the time. There's a plasticity where we can change it. You can change the brain by changing the programming that changes the chemicals. This journal says it's possible. And multiple journals say it's possible. So in order to change the programming in your brain, you got to change your potential. You know, is it scary to move to a new state that you don't know anyone? Yeah. To leave security, family, friends. Okay. Is it scary to start a relationship? Huge. Is it scary to cook dinner for 10 people? Not for you. For you, yes. Okay. So you look at it. But what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? See, we put these limits on our mind where we're going to start doing things that are safe and we know, okay, without expanding because we're afraid. But if you knew that you could reprogram your brain, you could relearn things, you can reverse disease, you can regenerate discs, you can reverse any type of condition on the planet, but first you've got to realize that you can do it. So we have to break the past programming. And we do this because the past programming is what's stopping you from achieving it. And I had a patient, he just lost his mom. Okay? Now I'm identifying with that because I lost my mom about 4 years ago. And he says, Doc, when do I get over it? And I said, well, you never do. Okay? You shouldn't. This isn't something you get over. Okay? But it's something that you put in a sweet spot in your heart, in a sweet memory. So you get over that hurt, pain, and sadness, and you replace it with joy and love of that person that was here. Okay, so you don't get over this stuff. You're not going to get over the fear. My dad once said that the difference, again, you know, we're talking World War II vet in Pearl Harbor. He said the brave man and a coward are both scared, but the brave man's scared, but he keeps doing the job. Okay, so how we get over this is replace fear with gratitude. Change that programming. And this actually, so if you're afraid of starting a relationship, be grateful that you've had one in the past. If you're afraid of losing your family member, be grateful of the joy that they brought you. So and the attitude of gratitude is spectacular. And also, too, you need a motivating factor. What's the motivating factor to change how your brain's programmed? Do you want to know? Do you want to change your health, relationships, finances, you know, whatever aspect of life? You know what the motivating factor is? What if you don't? What's your life like in 5 years? I know. Oh man, that hurts. Okay, so start thinking, what happens if you don't change it? Because if you do, what if you stay in that bad relationship, that bad job, that state where you didn't find your sweetheart? You know, I mean, what happens if you maintain that level of health? What happens if you keep taking that blood pressure drug for 5 years or the antidepressant for 5 or 10? What's going to happen? So you need that motivating factor because there's this dance. It's called the dance of decision. Tony Robbins covers this really well. what you want and what you fear most. I'm afraid of being alone, so I'm going to stay in a bad relationship. Really, what's it going to be like in 5 years? Ooh, I know. But that's the type of motivation that you need to change. So when we look at this, people get rewarded for not making appropriate decisions. And I know it sounds odd, but it's scary to make a change, because what if you failed? What if you started a relationship and it broke off? What if you started a business and it failed? And so a lot of people have learned helplessness. How many times have you heard a coworker or a friend, "It's not my fault." Really? How come you're not exercising? "Well, bad knees, it runs in my family." And then what are you going to say? "No, bad knees don't run." No, I know that's chiropractic humor. Okay, but this is what happens. You can blame the economy. You can blame, "No, I was hurt once before." But what is this? See, this is those memories that we're talking about. This is the same neuronal firings. This is what you have to change. See, when you talk about neuronal firings, why do they say this is what happens? They're reliving a memory. They're reliving that firing in the nervous system. And it could be anything. "It runs in my family." Well, why aren't you healthy? Why don't you? "Well, I just can't do this because my joints are going to wear out because bad joints run in my family." They're making those firings. If you think bad joints run in your family, guess what you're going to develop? Bad joints, because you're not going to want to use it. You're not going to say, "Yes, the more I open and close this joint, the stronger that joint gets." No, bad joints run in the family. I don't think I'm going to work it. Okay? See what happens? Your thoughts and actions perpetuate what you're going to live. If you keep producing the same thoughts, you're going to produce the same results. So, and I love this, the results. It's the same chemical response to environmental stimulus. The results, it's the same chemical response to environmental stimulus. This is what we got to change. So when you get that environmental stimulus, what I mean by environmental stimulus, what are you perceiving has health? Let's say you go in, you get an environmental stimulus from a guy wearing a white jacket that says, "Wow, your blood pressure, it's high." All of a sudden, if you own that, are you a victim? Yeah. If you go with the belief system of that doctor, you're going to think, "Wow, my body's defective. I'm hurt. I'm sick." When people come and they say, "Doc, should I stop taking my blood pressure drugs?" I say, "No. Sick people need drugs." Yeah, and you know what? They look at me and they say, "God, I never looked at me as sick. I just thought I had high blood pressure." No, you got to start looking at this as a different perception. So that's okay, buddy. So when you look at this, it's a perception that your body's sick. If you have high cholesterol, is that a disease or a response to tissue damage? We talk about this stuff. That's not a disease either. Now, we've got to change the programming. One of the ways, because remember, the only way that you're going to change your neuronal firings is by consistent, healthy input. The only way you're going to change neuronal firings is by consistent input, the brand new input. And because if you change how you view the world, you're going to change the chemical response, and that changes the body reaction. Yes or yes? Yes. So if you talk to yourself like, "This pain's killing me. I never finish anything. I'm just not going to find anyone." Okay? If you keep saying this, that is going to, just like the tennis player, is going to make those neurons fire together. They're wiring together, and they're going to produce a certain chemical. And so this could be in responses and to what you think is actually happening. So this is where you go. Now let's say you've got a couple, okay, just started a relationship, okay, and this couple, all of a sudden, there's an incident, okay? Not a big incident, more of a misunderstanding. And then what if you would say, "Well, gosh, she just doesn't love me. She doesn't understand me. I don't get appreciated." Okay, or he's being rude. He's not being truthful. He's not being honest. Okay, have you ever been in that situation?
Never.
Never. Never? Okay, everybody has, okay? You know, that's why. Why do we keep going into relationships? I don't know, okay? But, you know, when you have that, so imagine if you could use this, okay? Because this, remember, we want to change our brain's firing. Because when you get that environmental stimulus of, I'm not being heard, it's unfair, there's something wrong, okay? Go in and say, these are the 3 questions you got to ask. Is this true? Or could this be a misinterpretation? And then you look, do you have all the possible information to know exactly what's going on? And you could use this with everything. When the person diagnoses you with high blood pressure, is it true? Do I really have high blood pressure? Maybe not. Do you really have OCD, attention deficit disorder? All the other disorders out there, do you really have carpal tunnel syndrome, or do you just have a problem with the hand? Okay, do you really have knee pain, or is it just a problem with lack of nutrients to the knee? So you start looking at this and say, well, what do you feel, experience, or behave like when you believe, okay, this thought? Okay, now when you look at this, how do you behave when you're feeling not trusted? How do you behave when you feel betrayed? How do you feel like it's unfair? How do you behave that way? Okay, what I'm really asking is what type of chemicals are produced in your brain depending on that stimulus because the neurons are firing. Okay, does that make sense? Because this is what you're identifying with, is with the past. And then this is where it breaks it. What if the thought didn't exist? How would you behave? What would you experience like? What would you feel like? So if you're feeling betrayed, what if you misinterpret that? What if it's really love? If you're feeling that there's a problem with blood pressure or cholesterol or this, what if it wasn't? What if it's a misinterpretation? What if the doctor is missing the big picture? What if they're misdiagnosing you? What if you actually really are healthy? And I say that sick people need drugs. And I say it like that because people look at the pills, they're identifying with an illness, and that's changing the way their brain fires. You get somebody taking not 1, 3, 5, 10, 12. The most drugs I've ever seen is 32 specific drugs in a day. Now, she ended up crashing her car because she was losing it, and the police did a drug test on her, and they said, wow, you know, you're high in opiates. She says, no, they're all prescribed. And again, it's not needed. So how you change that programming, which is really how you change the way the neurons are firing, which really means how you change the neurons are firing by different environmental stimulus. So you're getting the same stimulus, but you're changing how the brain fires. Knowledge is real. Knowledge only when it's acquired by the efforts of your intellect, not by memory. So this means we have to start learning stuff. This is why this class is so important. Because now you can learn to identify the emotional response or the emotions secreted. Because the emotions are a chemical, depending on the environmental stimulus. And when you do this, I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. A memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. So this is when you read that book on parenting, and you get the idea for taking the trash out, and you develop a connection with your son. Do you think the trash was the only problem that me and my son had? No. So you got to keep doing it over. You got to keep changing those firings of that neurons to change the chemical to have the response. Right now, me and my boys, we're tighter than ever. Okay, not because we did one action, but because I changed my perception of their actions and they changed their perception of mine. And so when you look at this, it all has to do with what we're programming the conscious, how the subconscious fires and checks the perception, and how that works. So now this is the back of the sheet, because the key is to change from that program reality, and response into changing your new neuronal firings, your new neuronal connections. Identify with the feelings. Write it down. If every time your spouse comes home, he throws the socks on the ground, and you feel frustrated, angry, unheard, he's not respecting that you have to pick up the socks, he's not doing this, when in reality, guess what he's doing? He just wants to take his socks off. Okay? So when you look at this, identify with the feelings. Once you identify with the feelings, you're starting to identify with the way those neurons are connecting. So this is going to be the key. When you cook a great meal and nobody gives you a hand with the dishes, okay, is that frustrating? Well, not for me, because I like doing the dishes, okay? But, you know, for the average person. So when you look at this, these are difference. These are things what everybody needs. Meaning, autonomy, connection, peace, play. And when they're not met, you get irritated. But this is the frustrating part, because when you get that, when you get the socks on the floor, you get somebody not helping with the dishes, or someone not picking up the trash, you start to say the I am. And this is the most powerful tool to change. If you say, I'm really frustrated that you're not taking out the trash, what am I going to be? Frustrated. I'm seeing the trash there, so I'm going to create those neuronal firings. I'm going to create a chemical called frustration. Make sense? Okay. I'm grateful that you're able to pick up the dog poop. Okay. I'm really grateful that you're willing to help out. I'm really grateful and happy and full of joy that you're doing this for me. So you can see the differences here, but the power of I am. If you say, I am trying to get better, I am trying to do this. I had another patient, he was saying, you know, I really want to do everything I can to help. I really want to do this. And I said, I can't hear you. I don't understand that. What are you saying to me? No, Doc, I want to help to do everything to get better. And I said, all I hear is want. I don't know what the heck you're saying before and after. He said, oh, I get it, Bergman. Okay. I am working hard to get better. I am doing this. I am changing my diet. Okay. The power of I am is everything. It's everything. And utilize this. Utilize the I am before everything, and then you can change it. Here's a great example. This 20-year-old kid. I changed his name up there, but he's gone to every doctor. We're talking 15, 16 doctors. And he's having trouble in school. So what are they telling him? For the last, all through high school, he's 20 years old now, so the last 4 or 5 years he's been to umpteen different doctors. What are they labeling him? Oh, you're OCD. Oh, you're ADD, ADHD, AD, whatever the heck, you know, every letter out there. And why? He's having trouble in school. Now, in this society today, has he had some neurotoxins? Yeah, fully vaccinated, fast food diet, so we're talking extreme toxicities. But what's worse is, beyond the neurotoxins, the things that are poisoning his body and his brain, is the thought patterns that these people are putting in his brain. They're labeling this. And so what is he doing? If he has a focus problem, is he just saying, well, I didn't drink enough water, or well, I didn't breathe enough, or well, I'm just not practice at reading and memorizing, or I need a little bit more practice? Or is he saying, wow, I'm having trouble reading this page, I'm OCD, I'm ADD, I can't do this, I can't do this. And so this is his thought pattern, not just his thought pattern, this is the chemicals. He's never going to get out of this. Because why? In today's society, if your brain is producing certain neuronal firings that's producing certain chemicals that you're identifying with certain disease patterns, he's achieving it. And he's achieving it successfully. He's mastering his emotions to where it's depressed all the time. And I told him, because he was doing the same thing. Doc, I'm trying to change. If you're trying to change, guess what? You're always going to be trying. You're never going to change. Doc, I'm trying to do this. Yeah, if you're trying to do this, you're never going to do it. Okay, you got to actually do it. You got to change it. And so now we're actually working with him, and you can see his x-ray there. He's got some issues. He's got some physical pressure, which is causing ways that the brain changes. So he's got some sympathetic dominant problems. But the worst problem is he was identifying with the diagnosis that the doctors were giving him, which were causing him to be in this negative loop, negative cycle. And he was even asking me, what do you think I have? And I said, you got bad neuronal firings that's giving you a chemical addiction of depression and anxiety. And he said, what? And I said, your brain is being programmed by ignorant but well-meaning doctors to put your feelings and emotions in a category that they can identify with so that they can give you a drug and bill your insurance. And guess what he said again? What? So let me word it clear. You've been experiencing depression and anxiety, yes? Yeah. It's tough focusing, right? Yeah. And what's neat is it's almost like relief when you talk to someone like this. It's like, yeah, he's enthusiastic when he says yes, that he's having trouble focused, because this is something that he's identifying with. And so to change the way his brain's firing, guess what we started to do? Use the I am. Make him understand that he has the potential and the skill to reprogram his brain. But now, is he just going to do one I am session, one I am healthy, or I am this, or I am that? No. He's got to do neurolinguistic programming where he's reprogramming his brain every day. Not once, we're talking every day, morning, noon, and night. And what's going to change the neuronal firings of I am healthy, I'm dynamic, I'm fulfilled, I am fascinated, I'm friendly, I'm interested, I'm invigorated, I'm loving, I'm intrigued, I'm lively, I'm encouraged. If he did that 1,000 times a day, what do you think his brain's going to fire off like? What chemicals is he going to produce? He will no longer be in that state. And here's some of the tools, and this is on the other side of the sheet. This is Nonviolent Communication by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. I encourage you to go to seminars or to learn this. We've purchased, I think, probably a dozen books. And in our lending library, guess what? Some of them don't come back. No, but you know what's cool about that? I kind of vision that the books, even though they're not back, they're out there somewhere. Somebody's going to find it and use it. Okay, so it's okay. I shouldn't be saying that because I'm going to be buying more of the books. But it's okay because the world's going to be better. This is the key. Observations, and this is what we do with other people. Observations, say exactly what's happened, no worse, no more. Okay? The kid is not taking out the garbage. Okay? I'm getting a frustrated response, okay, from somebody. Then you do feelings, needs, and requests. So the observation, exactly what's happening. And I want you to observe the emotions that you're experiencing from the environmental stimulus. So if you're frustrated from dealing with the guy who's giving you the blood pressure drugs, okay? If you're frustrated with your spouse for throwing those socks on the floor, which I am guilty, okay? I'll try and put them in a pile. Okay, but when you're frustrated over little things, okay, you understand the feelings and then the needs, make the needs clear, and then the request. And we do an entire talk on nonviolent communication. This is just one tool to get your brain to be aware of your programmed reality into the new you, to get those brain cells to fire off new. First off, feeling is a chemical. I'm feeling is a chemical. I'm feeling sad, frustrated, happy, joyous, anything. Once you identify with the feeling, realize that that's a chemical being produced in your body. If you're feeling sad, you need to be understood, typically. If you're feeling angry, you need to be heard. If you're feeling frustrated, you need more of a connection. And this is just a clue. They're just clues. But understand, if they're non-life affirming emotions, okay, other than joy and grateful and happiness and connection, if you're feeling something other depending on environmental stimulus, there's a problem. There really is. And you can change it. Oh, and one of the worst things is when you say, I feel hurt when you, that means I'm producing a chemical in response to what you're saying because it wells up a memory in my brain and my neurons are firing. Does that make sense? Nobody can make you feel a way. What they're doing is they're stimulating a memory in you that's making those neurons fire. How many people have had a relationship problem just because somebody said something wrong? Or it was the tone. Huh? I know. Why? Because that tone is triggering in you a memory that triggers that chemical that triggers this. So once you identify the feeling associated with it, you can change. And this is kind of a slap in the face, because I'm saying that you're in charge of your emotions, you're in charge of your feelings, you're in charge of your thoughts. What you program, not anybody else, in your brain is going to initiate that chemical change. So it's the ball's in your, it's in your court. You got to do it. And I know it's a lot of responsibility, but by gosh, with responsibility, you get a chance to play. You can program your brain. So this is one thing that you do. If you approach people and you say, they're rude, they don't listen, okay, they just don't understand me, change it from they to I. That gas station attendant's always rude. Change it to I. I'm always rude to that gas station attendant. See, it's going to be a slap in the face, because what you're doing is you're creating a chemical that gives that feeling of rude and frustrated and unheard, okay, or anger, or all the chemicals that can be produced when you're saying that person's rude, right? If you change it to where I'm rude, it's like all of a sudden, oh man, now I got to rethink. This is a stimulus to change that brain. Okay, when you look at it, it's so, she never listens. I'm not listening. I know, isn't it? It's like an arrow into the heart. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to rethink this. They're the ones that have the problem, right? Okay, good. This is a key to change it. Michael Jackson's right, the man in the mirror. Whose problem is it? Yep. Had this one doctor I was trying to help. Now, I start work at 5 in the morning. Okay? He would start work at 10. How busy was his practice? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, not really busy. Okay, and he was really frustrated, and I says, well, you know, you got to find out who's in charge of your practice and fire him. And he said, then he guess who was in charge of his practice? Him. Yeah. Took him a little bit. He was a little slow. Yeah. This is what you require. You change the brain, you change the input, you change life. I mean, when you eat something like this, is that a high energy food? It's life affirming. It has a certain energy. You do something good for yourself, okay? That's going to change how the brain fires. This is what you require, okay, to change your brain, to change the neuronal firings. You need appropriate stimulus, okay, to get the nervous system checked. Exercise. What does exercise do to the brain? It changes that brain's neuroplasticity. It oxygenates the brain. Okay, you need proper nutrition, absolutely. Sufficient rest. This means every night, deep sleep. And you absolutely need prayer and meditation. This is prayer and meditation, but a different type of meditation, a different type of prayer. If you're frustrated with somebody, you don't say, I hope that bastard begins to listen to me. That's not a good prayer. Okay, it's not going to be effective. Please help me to be grateful for that input. Help me to be grateful for this. Help me to be loving and understanding. Help that person to see my heart, to realize my connection is true and honest. Help me to be loving and honest and have good integrity with this person. Okay, can you see that? So this prayer and meditation that we put at the end of each talk can actually, if you utilize it correctly, can change the way the neurons fire in the brain, change the chemicals that change the body response. Does that make sense? That's a wow moment. You just saw the prayer and meditation and thought it was just like normal. No, baby. This is it. Now, all of these slides and everything, they're all available on our website, owners-guide.com. The handouts are available there, and this is for everybody on YouTube. Please take advantage of it, because to train your brain to make life more wonderful for the world, we got to do it. We're all in this together. Yes? Yes. Good. Thank you very much.